What's going on, guys? Hopefully a couple of you catch this live Q&A and I can answer some of your questions about sync licensing, sync academy, libraries, working, mixing, mastering, hopefully anything that I can possibly help you guys out with. I am here to do that. So while we're waiting for a few of you to show up here, I'm going to run just a couple of tests with my screen recording software. Just make sure that I'm capturing all this and it's working decently and audio is coming through okay. All right, let's see what that looks like and sounds like here. A couple of tests with my... Looks good. All right. So I'll just kind of hang for a bit, wait for more of you guys to show up and fill in the chat box with questions. Anything you guys want to learn, anything you guys are curious about. Looks like we got 2 of you guys in so far. Again, ask me anything you guys want to know. Got some really cool tutorials coming your guys' way for February. I'm working on a few. I have my other Sync Academy pros working on some as well. I've got nothing but really positive feedback from you guys and some also really constructive feedback from you for how to make things a little bit stronger and better and for what kind of stuff to include moving forward. So I'm really, really encouraged about that. And again, the more you guys communicate, DJN, what's up, man? The more you guys communicate and the more you guys tell me what you want, the better I can serve you. So it's really on you in many ways. I do my best to try to serve your needs and to give you guys the best education I can possibly give you. But with so many members, sometimes I don't know, you know, obviously everybody's at their own separate place in their career. So I don't want to give only tutorials for those of you that are maybe already accomplished in your DAW software. Maybe we need to get some introductory tutorials, for example, for how to use some of the DAW software. I know that everybody's at their own unique place, so I want to make sure that everybody gets something here in Sync Academy. That's what we're trying to do. So Elvis, welcome, man. Michael, welcome, guys. Hope you guys are doing well. Feel free. We got 8 of you guys, 9 of you now watching. Post your questions. Anything you guys are curious about, anything you're interested in about sync licensing. That's what this whole session is about, and I want to make sure that I can answer some of those questions for you. So please don't be shy. Cascio, what's up? Yeah, looks like the link went through, and we got 10 of you guys in here, so this is really cool. I got to tell you guys, I just did this little chat with the syndicate members about how I'm loving this platform because, and I think for a lot of you guys watching this, this might have been one of your last. Well, I mean, some of you are probably still using Facebook. For a lot of the syndicate members, at least, the only reason why they use Facebook was because that's where we were hosting all of our stuff. And now that we've moved to this platform, it was like that final, like, okay, thank you. Now I don't have to go back to Facebook anymore. And I'm exactly in the same boat. I was really mostly just using Facebook for those purposes. Now that we have this new platform, I just love logging into this every day. I got it on my phone. I got it on my laptop, on my computer. And it's just awesome. And it's nice that it's not like full of distractions, right? All that just garbage that goes on with Facebook and social media. This is really cool that it's just focused here. Russell, what's up? Derek, welcome. Michael, all right. Glad that you like it. Cool. Well, we already got a question there from Derek, but let's get a couple of questions in there and then we'll get started here. So put them in, guys. Load me up with a bunch of questions. So all right, you guys got the questions coming in here. Very cool. Got 12 of you. All right. Hopefully a lot of you guys are able to make a lot of music today. I know that weekends are usually, at least when I was first getting started, like Saturdays and Sundays were my golden days. And I tried to block out every other social obligation I had. And I just wanted to make music because I knew sometimes, you know, you get home from work 5, 6 p.m. and you're just spent and all you can do is watch TV. That's all you really have the energy to do. So I remember those weekends were like just very sacred in terms of I knew I had to get a lot of stuff done on the weekend. So hopefully you guys are too. All right. Everything seems to be going well here. So, all right, we'll go ahead and get started. Make sure that's working. All right, cool. All right, so first question up is from Derek. So the average salary in music licensing business, okay. So the question is, what's the average salary for a music producer after being involved in the licensing industry for several years. While I would love to give you guys a sort of definite answer and say it's, 50 grand, 75 grand, 100 grand, I can't give you those sort of guarantees, and nobody can really give you those guarantees because obviously there is so much out of our control in this industry. The only thing you can really control is obviously the quality of music that you produce and the quality of libraries that you partner with. Now, I've heard of horror stories of producers that have been involved in this industry for about as long as I have, and they've made maybe hundreds of dollars, like literally, or maybe less than that. I've definitely gotten emails from producers that are like, Jesse, I've been in this for, 5-10 years. I have, sometimes I've heard these stories where they had like, 300 or 400 tracks in the system and they haven't gotten any placements at all. And so obviously my, red flag starts going off and I'm like, okay, you're obviously doing something wrong. If you're in this business for that long and you're not seeing any placements or any growth, okay, one of two things. You're not making the right kinds of music, or the libraries that you're partnering with, they probably went to sleep on you. They weren't really legitimate to begin with. Or maybe the music that you were creating, maybe they just took anything because they wanted a lot of music, but you weren't really giving them music that they needed for their clients, right? So there are so many variables in there, but basically the things that you can control as a producer is the quality of music that you make and the quality of libraries that you can work with. Even that's obviously out of your control because you have to get accepted by them, but you can get accepted by them by using, Sync Academy tutorials, for example, to learn how to make licensable music. So obviously in various parts of the country, you have the big cities where 50 grand will barely get you by. That probably won't be enough to really get you ahead and start saving. You can probably pay your bills maybe. It depends on obviously where in the city you live, how low your expenses could get. But if you're in the middle of the country where it's a lot lower, 50 grand, you can be living easy. I mean, that could be a lot of money actually to take care of a lot of your expenses. So I wish I could give you guys a definite number, but it really is because you've heard of probably both sides of the spectrum, but producers that make millions of dollars in this industry definitely happens, and producers that are striking out and they're not getting anything. So what I would definitely recommend is, rather than focusing on that number, because that number is really out of your control in so many ways, focus instead on what you can do right now, right? Which is improve your production quality, partner with really good quality libraries. Dovetailed into that advice, I would say, do what you can to minimize your monthly expenses, okay? I would definitely say that most people, not just producers, are only focusing on one half of the equation, and they're only thinking about, well, I need to make more money. How do I make more money? I got to make more money. While they're also buying, all these subscriptions, and they're buying a new car, and they're upgrading everything, and they're remodeling their house. And they're doing all this stuff, putting themselves in debt, or just swiping their credit cards on a bunch of junk that they don't really need. And they're just focusing on the wrong side of the equation because they're like, well, I got to get a lot of money to keep paying for all this stuff that I want. So if you start to eliminate or minimize a lot of these expenses, that break-free moment where you have enough money with your royalties to allow you to do this full time comes a lot sooner, because this isn't weighing you down. This isn't sort of that big obligation that you have to start to take care of in order to get to that freedom point. So focus on what you can control today. That would be my advice for that. Let's see. Cascio, about the funk opportunities, are little whooshes or ear candies appropriate? We're not going to talk about the opportunities in this one, Cascio. This is just broadly for a Sync Academy member. So we're not talking about syndicate stuff here, man. Sorry, I can't answer that here. Let's see. One of the things I noticed is studio sound. For example, my last submission, you mentioned my low was muddy. I had to cut a lot per your suggestion on checking the room. Okay. When you have low frequencies that are muddy, I'm not an audio engineer, so I don't think I can give you that kind of advice to tell you, get this sound trap and all that kind of stuff. And I probably couldn't give you any professional advice in terms of how to acoustically treat your room. I generally just try to kill the echoes, because in every square room, you're obviously going to have those slapback echoes. Above and beyond that, I couldn't help you really honestly with that. What I would rather obviously if you can kill the echoes and kind of create sort of a damper room so you're not getting sort of that distortion in the room, then that's obviously step one. But usually it's going to come down to getting that reference track in front of you, listening to your track, and really, even if you want to just focus on those low ends and really just play that reference track for the full time through in your studio, close your eyes. Sometimes even looking at our DAW screens, we see all these meters and stuff. We start to think that we're hearing things that we don't. Sometimes it's easier just to close your eyes, listen to the reference track, really pay attention to what's happening in the low end. If it's clear, if it's punching through, listen to yours. If you're hearing a lot of, you know, a lot of that sort of subwoofing, just blowout happening and it's distorting your mix, then you need to go through and find those problematic frequencies and take them down. We have many tutorials in Sync Academy about that. I won't get into the specifics of that. So I'm sorry, I can't give you the sort of, you know, technical details on how to treat your room, but it's really more about using your ears, because even if you're not in a perfectly acoustically treated room, and spoiler alert, nobody has a perfectly acoustically treated room in Sync Academy. I don't. Our other licensing professionals don't. We do the best that we can with the resources that we have. Okay, we don't have multi-million-dollar studios. That's not important, actually. What's important is you start to learn how to use these. These are your most important, valuable assets. Learn to use your ears and learn how to analyze a reference track and try to do your best to emulate what they're doing. So, all right. Zon, all right. Are some libraries accepting cinematic or credit music for films, not trailer music? Let's see. For films, not trailer music. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there are tons of libraries that will, if they're accepting it for trailer music, they're more than likely going to have opportunities as well, just for film placements as well. Obviously, with films, though, you guys know how most of the, you know, I'd say A-list films, a lot of times they'll go and just hire a composer. So those are the ones that are really tricky opportunities to get into. Not saying it's impossible, but for the most part, you know, these multi-million-dollar productions, they're going to go hire, you know, an experienced and well sort of vetted composer or producer that they've already worked with before, because they can't take a chance on a new guy. You know, they just can't do that with that much money on the line. So they're going to go to somebody who's an industry standard for those kind of opportunities. So that would be one of those opportunities you can get in down the road. But in the beginning of your career, you're going for the library approach, right? That's what I recommend. And that's how you're going to get your first couple of placements. And then you can start building those relationships down the road for those things. Okay, good question. MR. Okay. Can you be a BMI writer and a ASCAP publisher, or do you have to be PRO? Okay. So the question is, can you be both, let's say, a BMI writer while you're an ASCAP publisher, or vice versa? You're an ASCAP writer as a BMI publisher. Or maybe another question that a lot of composers and producers have is, can you be a writer on both? You know, can you be a writer on BMI and ASCAP? Can you be a publisher on both BMI and ASCAP? Here's basically the simplified rules for that whole scenario. So first, you can only be a writer with one PRO at a time, okay? The only exception to that would be if you are not living in the US, you call your local PRO and they have a sort of situation set up where you can join, let's say, BMI or ASCAP for your placements in the US, but they take care of your placements in your home country. Okay, that would be the only exception to this. But for all my US watchers here, you can only be one of those. You either got to be with BMI or ASCAP. CSAC is invite only. And I'm sorry to be a dream killer. If you're not making any income with your royalties right now, they just won't take you seriously. So don't even bother applying. If you want to apply down the road, that's your prerogative. But in the beginning, which most of you guys probably are, BMI and ASCAP, totally you should join one of those two. But you can be a publisher with both simultaneously. You absolutely can have a publishing company with BMI. You have a publishing company with ASCAP. I have one of each. So you can absolutely have one in each of those. So yes, you can be a BMI writer, have an ASCAP publishing. You can do vice versa, whatever you want to do. Those are the only limitations. Obviously, it's just with being a writer. All right. Brian's asking about improving recording guitars for sound quality or timing, getting rid of latency issues when recording guitar. Well, your buffer settings, your audio buffer settings, that's what you want to first look at, Brian, in your DAW to get rid of that buffer setting. In terms of recording guitars, I've always gone direct in, and I usually use Guitar Rig 5 for my amp simulator. I find a lot of it has to do with your amp simulator. If you're using a garbage amp simulator, you're going to have garbage guitars. So look for decent. Amplitude was my first go-to. And when I got into Guitar Rig 5, I never looked back. All of you guys, if you want to do something that sounds realistic, Guitar Rig, that's my definite guarantee. But getting the high quality, decent plugins, that's definitely where to go. Island style R&B. I would say more island style. I mean, EDM would probably be a little bit more licensable. Roy's asking about island style R&B. Can I get licensed? Sure, it definitely can, but I've definitely just seen more now that in the pop world, in the EDM dance world, that tropical island feel has come in. That's where you're going to see a lot more action. So if you love the island thing, R&B, I mean, that's also really, what does that mean? Because, you know, that term can mean a bunch of different sounds. So I usually think of more EDM pop, you know, with that tropical feeling in it. I think that would be the direction that I would personally steer myself in. Craig, glad you finally made it, man. All right, Cascio, let's see, exclusive libraries. Do most of them work on consideration sync custom job fees? Or do they like to add your music to their catalog and then you just wait for them to place your tracks? Oh, okay. So the question is, with exclusive libraries, how does it work? Sometimes libraries, they might take your music and then sort of shop it out there. And then they'll let you know, hey, we got this placement, we got that placement, go ahead and send us more. Other libraries also might do this thing where they accept a couple of your tracks and then they say, don't submit anymore. We're not looking to build a catalog. We basically just do mostly custom jobs. And when you want to, or when we want more music from you, we'll reach out to you and ask for that music. So I've seen libraries do both, and usually exclusive ones are the only ones that are going to do both. If they're non-exclusive, they're likely just going to try to grab your tracks and add it to their catalog. They just want as many tracks as they possibly probably can. Hopefully they go for high quality ones. But exclusive libraries, it can work either way. So if you're partnered right now with a library that they accepted a couple of your tracks, or they just didn't even accept the track, but they just said, you know what, we don't accept tracks from writers, but we want to keep you on our roster, and we'll bring you on board when we have an opportunity for you, when we need music from you, we have a custom job, or we need an album for one of our clients, we'll hit you up. That's great. It's not a bad situation to be a part of. It's absolutely can be very lucrative. However, that would be your opportunity, and I would strongly recommend you go find another library that will want those constant library submissions and those album submissions from you, right? Because what do we never do in this business? We never just sit around and wait for somebody to call us to give us work. If you're waiting for somebody to tell you, here's an opportunity, send us this, you are going to be left behind. You are going to have nothing to show for maybe months or years in this industry. So my golden rule is definitely never wait for anybody, okay? If your library partners right now are falling asleep on you, they're not asking for music, they're kind of not returning phone calls or not returning emails, it's time to go make another relationship. Okay, it happens. All right, let's just be adults about this, that every library you partner with isn't going to be with you to the very end of your career. I'd say it's actually very unlikely that the library you partner with this year will be with you in 5 years. It might not happen because they could get bought out. I've had situations where I was working with a library, the main contact I was working with left the company, and I didn't really have a relationship with the CEO. This was kind of more the head of A&R. And, you know, I tried to keep relationships going with the CEO, but we just didn't connect. And after a couple of months, the whole relationship fizzled and that whole situation kind of went away. I did end up working with the A&R guy. He started his own company, which was great. And I had a lot of great opportunities with him. But this is the reality of business, is that it's a people business, right? You have to have a relationship with somebody. So I would say if you don't get a lot of work thrown your way on a consistent weekly basis or maybe monthly basis, that's your good sign that you've got time, right? And you've got the resources and you can go out and create another relationship with another library. Appears that Russell, good question too. Appears that vocals with lyrics are not very prevalent in the materials being presented. Am I missing it, or is it this shortage? This sort of track. Okay. Vocals with lyrics. Oh, gotcha. So you're asking about the Sync Academy stuff. Okay. So the question is, when you are putting music out into the licensing industry, do libraries want tracks with vocals and with an artist singing on it, or do they usually want more just instrumental based? And if there are vocals on it, it's just somebody singing a background, ooh, you know, something like that, but it's not like a lead feature vocal. What are you going to find mostly in the licensing business? Well, in my experience, 80% of the opportunities that I come across, probably more than 80%, are asking for background instrumental cues. Sometimes foreground, they're not always in the background, but usually it's always instrumental. And why is that? Well, think about watching TV. What's happening on TV? Human beings are talking. Actors are giving each other dialogue. There's a voiceover. There's a narrator. There's somebody talking, okay? So there are obviously those placements and those moments when it might be a montage or it could be a commercial without anybody talking. and they're just showing you visuals where they will want vocals. So there's absolutely a place for those placements, and those are really actually more lucrative than just background instrumentals. However, there are not as many of those placed. Just go watch TV if you don't believe me. Go watch a streaming show, go watch TV. Pay attention to how many tracks and songs you hear without any vocals and the ones that do, and see if you can find your own ratio. I think you're going to find it's about the same that I do, 80-20. You're going to find a few great vocals, a pop song. Oh, I know that song. And then there's just tons and tons of background music that you don't hear a vocalist with. I don't focus that much in Sync Academy with vocals and background vocals. We are definitely going to add some of those training sessions and those videos to our platform here because it is a part of Sync licensing. So I certainly don't want to overlook it. And I've definitely done quite a bit of it in my career. But for the vast majority of the income I've made in this business, it's just me in front of my keyboard producing music. And if you're a vocalist, you might be bummed out. I mean, I wouldn't be, because if you can sing, and I mean like you can really sing, you can hold a key, you have great enunciation, you can produce yourself, it sounds really great on your tracks, you set yourself apart from the industry and from the competition instantly, because most people can't deliver that. And I will tell you this for sure, and other professional producers will back me up on this, working with vocalists can easily be the biggest nightmare of your life. There's attitude, there's entitlement. There's just a lot of nonsense that goes on with vocalists. All right. Some of them are great. This isn't, I'm not judging all vocalists, but some of you guys that are vocalists are really hard to work with and very unprofessional. And so for me, I had enough of those sort of nightmare sessions that when I realized I can just do this kind of by myself, I can produce my own instrumental music and not worry about all that. Oh, I was so relieved. I I loved it. If I could sing, which I can't, I'm terrible, I would be singing a lot more on my tracks, but I just don't have the voice. I don't really have that talent. Once in a while, an opportunity will present itself. But you know who I work with? I work with people who I've done great work with in the past, right? I have people that I've worked with throughout my career, and if they're available, a lot of times they have their own home studios. I send them the track. They record their own vocals, which is like, thank you. And then I mix it, and I put the final polishing touches on it. But that's the way I like to work. I like professionals. I like people that just can take care of their own business, and we can partner on that level. I really don't, for myself personally, I don't like the hand holding. I don't like to hold on. Let's go retrack that. That was a little bit flat. Let's try that again. I did thousands of hours of that when I was, in my sort of in LA days trying to, come up as a producer. I'm just kind of done with all that stuff now. I love just making music and staying instrumental. So I do recommend for those of you that are obviously in the beginning stages of your career, go with the instrumental track, go with the instrumental lane. You're going to find most opportunities doing that anyways. All right. Roy. All right. Glad you made it, man. If there's a show that I think my music would fit, actually wrote a song, I know supervisors who are there. Is there a way to find the libraries they work with? Okay, so the question is, if you write a song and you know that there might be a particular TV show that you want to pitch your track to, is it possible to reach out to that music supervisor or maybe do some digging into finding out who that supervisor works with, what library they're with, and try to feed that library to get into that supervisor's basically world so you can get that track into that TV show? Question is absolutely. Like, if there's a will, there's a way. I'm sure there are plenty of online resources you can go do that. There is a link to a what do they call it? It's a website where you can basically, I forgot, it's blanking right now, but there's a link to a website where you can actually look up TV shows that are on right now and see the music that's being featured in it. And I think you can also look up the music supervisor. I'll get that for you guys, and I'll share it with you guys. But here's why I don't like that approach, though, is because it's a difference between having a singular goal and casting a wider net of a sort of a system of success. And what I mean by that is, if you're writing a song and you're like, oh, I know the song is perfect for this TV show. This is the TV show it's for. And you spend all of your energy just hunting down the supervisor and getting the library information and trying to get into that library. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of focus. And what if you don't get accepted by that library? You're going to feel this immediate feeling of defeat. You didn't get your goal. You didn't get to that one point that you were going for, which was you wanted to hear your music on that particular TV show with that particular music supervisor. The chances of, nailing that kind of a conversion are slim. Let's just be honest. Like, there's so many producers, there's so much music. And even if you get into that library, you're also now competing with all that other music for that supervisor to select through. So there's just, the odds are really stacked up against you to get into that one place. So rather than thinking about one particular TV show or one particular, national commercial or something like that you want your music on, zoom out a little bit, okay? If you could get placed in multiple outlets and multiple places, simultaneously, right? Having one track placed in 50 different TV shows or 50 different commercials at once, but you didn't really have them all, you know, pinpointed. I want these 50 different shows. Are you going to feel like you failed because you've got all that, you know, placement with your music? Of course not. You're going to feel, wow, like what a rush to have my music now out there with this much exposure. In order to get to that kind of success, you have to cast a wider net, right? That means you have to develop a series of skills with your music production, with how you approach libraries, with how you interact with libraries, with how you stay hungry. And you always submit to the opportunities presented to you with music libraries, and you're first to deliver whatever they need. If they need a final from you, if you need those alt mixes, and you're the most professional, the most hungry producer, and these really good habits, these really hardworking, effective habits become second nature to you. You just wake up and you exhale excellence. That's just what you do. You just get up, you make licensable music, you send it to reputable companies, and you get placements and you get paid. It's just now your second nature. That's what you're doing, is you're creating a system of success. You're not going for, I want to get into a Steven Spielberg movie, and if I don't get it, I didn't succeed. You guys see the difference now? There are two different ways basically you can approach this business. And if you can open yourself up to more possibilities by just having solid work habits and solid workflows, then you can get to that point where you have all those placements coming in simultaneously. All right. A little behind here. Let's see. Love the site so far, getting a lot of it. What would you think the best forum opportunity for feedback and critique is on your site or off? You know, that's tricky, man, because I know a lot of you guys in the Sync Academy are posting tracks and getting some feedback, and I'm glad to see that. I'm glad you guys are kind of encouraging each other. You know, I can't tell you honestly a place. I started the syndicate because that's obviously, I didn't see that happening anywhere. And music libraries, usually if they reject you, they just kind of say, sorry, thanks for trying, or not even anything at all. And so there's a big lack of feedback. Absolutely. You're nailing on that. And that's definitely why I created the syndicate. Now, just so you guys all know, I am not accepting new members right now in the syndicate. So don't try to apply. Don't try to, like, you know, get into the group or something like that. Nobody's getting in right now. Okay. We have full capacity. I have full membership right now. I will open it up in the future, and I'll let you guys know about that. But for right now, no. It is tricky, man. I mean, if you can really connect with other people here in Sync Academy and you guys can really develop a trust with a couple of members, you guys can obviously share your tracks back and forth. The tricky thing is obviously to get a professional to listen to your music. And I think that's what you guys are really looking for. I know you guys appreciate each other's feedback, and that's, again, very helpful. I'm not discounting that. But to get a trained ear, to get somebody who's been doing this for that long, I know that's really hard to do. And obviously I'm only one person. There's only so much time and energy that I can give. And if you find another producer who's doing this full time, they only have so much time and energy that they can give. So unfortunately, I couldn't really tell you of a great place to do that. I know that in the future, it was a project that I was thinking about starting, creating some sort of a platform like that, where basically you guys could connect with licensing professionals and you guys could sort of find that place where you could get that feedback. But that's a project that I'm not ready to tackle on at this point. I'm just getting Sync Academy started and making sure that this is all rolling well for you guys and serving you guys. So we'll see what happens in the future. But, you know, I wish I could help you guys a little bit out more than that. But for right now, Sync Academy is the best thing you got. I really do believe that. I don't think there's anything else like this that has this kind of encouragement for you guys. Craig, what plugin do I use for detuning? I don't know what you mean by detuning, Craig. You might have to, you know, if you mean by like pitch shifting or something, I'm not sure exactly what you mean by detuning. All right, Martin, asking my Song Trust customer service rep about transferring to BMI. She indicated ASCAP may want to keep my publishing. I'm just a writer with them. Can you explain? ASCAP wants to keep your publishing. Yeah, I'm not sure what they mean by that either. That's a little bit confusing because ASCAP doesn't keep your publishing. They might represent your publishing, but they're not keeping anything. So I'm guessing right now, Martin, unless you have some, I don't know if you have maybe some deals where you have a library that owns your publishing. Yeah, because when I switched, now this might have changed. I need to probably do some research. When I switched over, but this was 2012, I think. They just basically said, do you want to switch everything over, or do you want to keep everything here? And that was my option at that point for both writing and publishing. So they gave me the options to move back and forth. So they might have changed. Obviously, this has been 6 years now, so they might have changed that. So I would ask for clarification on that. I couldn't give you an answer on that one. Is starting a publishing company complicated, Roy? No, not at all. So if you want to start a publishing company, you can obviously do a DBA, and I don't want to get into all the technicalities of starting a business here in this one, but you definitely could get a DBA, or you could set up like an LLC, an S corp. You have to check with your CPA to find out what would work best for you, and then you basically join BMI or ASCAP as a publisher, and then get your company set up that way. So no, not complicated at all. But again, the only reason why you would need a publishing company is if you're going to be making income off of publishing, right? So right now, in the beginning of your guys' careers, when you get accepted to a library, most of the time the library is taking the publishing anyways. So what's the point of starting a publishing company? Unless you have a contract that says, hey, we'll give you 25%, 50%, you can potentially earn publishing. That would be the only reason why you'd want to start that. Oh, there's a good question. Adam, okay. So should you send to libraries 1 track at a time, or should you wait until you have a full album, maybe 10 tracks, 12 tracks before you submit? Which one of those probably has the best chances of getting accepted and impressing a library? Well, it actually obviously is to have a full album ready to go. Why is that? Well, I would say if you went back in time 10 years, you probably could get away with sending 1 or 2 really interesting licensable tracks to a library to get their attention. And then they go, wow, we love this. We want to work with you. Come on board. Let's work with you to get your entire album done. That's what happened to me, actually, when I first got started in this business. I didn't have a full album. I actually got signed based on a couple of demos that I had sent into this library. And they liked it so much. They're like, yeah, let's work with you. And they really kind of coached me through the process and got me up to my first couple of albums. Now, this was 2008, though. All right, this is 10 years ago, so 11 years ago now. So times have changed, right? So the industry is much more competitive now. And I used to teach producers a couple years back, 2 or 3 tracks was your minimum to get in. I have to update that. And if those of you haven't heard me say this, I will say this now to make it very clear. Most libraries, unless they specifically tell you, send us 2 or 3 tracks, I wouldn't even bother composing the email until you have a full album. 8, 10, usually 10 or 12 though. You should have a solid group of licensable tracks all in one genre, or if it's a hybrid, but it's all themed in one place. Okay, so don't send them a rainbow album of hip hop and orchestral and EDM and just all this stuff and rock music. You need to find out, what is it that you make the best? What is your genre that you specialize in, that you really do the best, the one that you love the most, the one that you feel is the most licensable, and that you really stand out with. You start with that sound, develop that, and then pitch once you have a full album ready to go. Because what they can do is, once they get that submission from you and get that email, they go, we could put this into our sorry, I think my microphone is buzzing a lot right now. Can you guys hear a buzz? There we go. That's better. Okay, sorry about that, guys. You'll get more consideration when you have a full album, because they can then turn around and immediately get you under contract, get you paid out, throw that album right into their catalog. They don't have to hold your hand and wait till you have the entire thing done. They got you ready to go from day one. Okay, it's a very lucrative and tempting offer for a library. It's harder for them to say no to that, honestly. All right, let's see where we're at here. Starting to build the catalog. Okay, like 2 tracks in. Should we start for reference tracks? How? Good question. Slasmodge. I think I got it right. Probably did. All right. So if you want to build a catalog and you're trying to get to that point where you have 10 or 12 tracks to send to a library, the question is, how do you decide where to get started? Should you be using reference tracks? Should you be, using maybe an artist as a template? Like, how do you get started with that entire process? Because honestly, it could be kind of daunting, right? To look at 10 or 12 tracks ahead of you and go, how the hell am I going to get that done? I totally understand that, and I appreciate that. So what I would recommend is definitely go find reference tracks. Okay, you can get music libraries. You can obviously search YouTube. You can go to iTunes. I don't care where you go, but go find really high quality licensable tunes and in a style that you love. Okay, if you're actually even to that point where you're like, well, I don't know, I could do the hip hop, I could do rock. Again, zero it down into the genre that you probably feel the most in your heart, in your soul, in your bones, that you just Even if you weren't doing music licensing, even if you weren't trying to do this full time, you'd still be jamming out to that music. You'd still be making it. It's the thing that you love. That's where you start. Okay. You always got to start with where your heart is, because if your heart's not in this, you are not going to make it in the long run, because you're going to make so much music. There's so much music to be made in this business. And if you're not loving the music that you're making, you are going to hate life very quickly, very, very quickly. So make sure you love, obviously, what you're doing. But absolutely go find yourself either a reference track or an album or a series of reference tracks that basically have the quality, the licensability, and maybe some that are already accepted into libraries. You need to go find that music. You need to go find the exact place that you want to be in terms of the quality of the mix, of the producing, of the mastering, and do your best to emulate those sounds. That's what you really need to do. I am in this business now over 10 years, and I don't really start stuff without a reference track, guys. And I've again, you would think I'm only recommending this to people that just get started. No, like even producers that have been in this business for longer than me, 20 years, they still use reference tracks. When they get an opportunity, they don't just fly blind and just, well, I just created something, we'll see what happens. Professionals don't do that. We don't have the luxury to do that. Okay. That's what we did as amateurs, as just people having fun with music, kind of getting lost in the creativity of it all, which is still good to do once in a while. But when it's full-time income, when it's your job, and we're talking about being a serious producer, no, we don't have the time or the luxury to be able to experiment with our time in the studio. We have limited studio time. And so what you need to do is have a blueprint in front of you. You need to have a guide sheet. You have something that tells you, here's where you are, there's where you want to go. And it just helps you so much, and it gets you to those places faster. So you understand what kind of instruments should I be stacking this up? What kind of a structure should I have? How long should a track be? How loud should a track be? All of those questions can be answered with a reference track. And it's such a, incredible thing that you can absolutely do that. And the way that I describe it is that it's basically like getting like free tutoring from world-renowned composers, or just some of the most incredibly talented people that you've ever heard of. And you get it all for free with reference tracks. Okay. Obviously, big disclaimer, do not rip off anybody's music. Don't copy their chord progressions. Don't copy their leads. Don't make a mimic of their track. Follow in the spirit of what they've done. Okay, you can create something very similar, and a lot of times that's what you're going to be asked to do in the licensing business. But again, we want to stay away from infringement, copyright infringement, and stealing people's stuff. Okay, it's really not a good thing to do. But absolutely, reference tracks all day long. Okay, that's why I included that with Sync Academy. I have my orchestral reference tracks video, which walks you through. If you guys haven't watched that, you do need to go watch that. It walks you through every consideration I go through: the instruments, the mood, the style, the feelings, the transitions, all of these elements. You need to be aware of them. Okay. It's a little bit more complicated than just, they had horns in their track, so I put horns in my track. Look, I made an orchestral track. No, a little bit more complicated than that. Not rocket science, but there's some more things that you should be definitely aware of to make sure that you're delivering licensable music for this industry. All right. Happy Sunday, brother. 1 second, guys. Let me just go ahead and double check something here. I just want to make sure my computer's not frying out on me. Oh, it's John, as in Jean-Claude Van Damme. All right. Yes. So Z-Man, I would definitely go with Z-Man, man. Because if somebody sees that name and they don't know how to pronounce it, yeah, it could be an issue for you. So definitely, I would go Z-Man. Okay, let's see where we at here. What's up, Brandon? Glad you're here, man. Oh, great question from Color Parade. Okay, that's about scheduling, making certain types of tracks, or making whatever you're feeling. Okay. So when you're building up your catalog for music licensing, should you just sort of go with whatever you're feeling that given day, that given week, or should you have a schedule that you stick to and ensure that you meet those, long-term and short-term goals by completing the album? Well, I probably just gave you guys the answer with the way that I phrased that. Absolutely, you go with the schedule. Okay. I would say, no, I don't think ever do I ever come into my studio and go, what do I feel like making today? What am I just in the mood to make? No, because you know why? Almost everything that I do is being requested from my licensing partners. Okay. Now, a lot of you guys are obviously in the beginning stages of your career and you don't have relationships yet. You're not getting you know, opportunities thrown your way and nobody's telling you, hey, send me hip hop tracks, send me EDM tracks. Okay. So you don't have that pulling you in. So where do you go? Right. So you just go with what you're feeling. Now, the caveat there being, as I've said before, yes, go with what you love. You should definitely go with the style, the sound, the genre that really moves you. That's definitely wise and smart, especially if you want this to be a 10, 20, 30-year career, right? And I guarantee you that in 10 years, you're going to be a radically different producer, producing all different types of sounds that you never thought you ever would. I was a metalhead, and I never thought that I'd do pop or EDM or orchestral or hip hop or any of those other genres that I've dabbled in. But licensing, music licensing makes you a better producer in the long run. So you guys will see as time goes on that you will evolve. But absolutely, you should have a schedule, right? You should make a commitment. You should decide what's the theme of the album I want to put together. How do I want to create this music? And then you create that schedule and you say, okay, I want it done in, let's say, 2 months. I want a 10-track album done in 2 months, right? Okay, where am I going to be at the end of week 8 or week 7, right? A week before this is due, how many tracks do we need to have back? Go back all the way to this week, all right? What do I need to do this week? I need to get 1 track done, 2 tracks done, whatever your goal is. You need to sort of like space that out, make it reasonable, okay? This is another big thing that I can tell you. And I've had a few students, that even syndicate members, that they learn about licensing. It's like they, you know, it's like they just snorted a line of cocaine or something. And they're just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And they're just running, you know, 1,000 miles an hour. And they're creating, you know, 4 tracks a day. And they're just, I mean, they're literally burning the candle at both ends. They got a full-time job. They got a family. They're going nuts, right? And I always see that. And this is wisdom. And I'm like, I really don't think that's going to work out. You know, I wish everybody the best, obviously. But when I see that kind of intensity that quickly, it's like a bright light that I know it's bright and shiny right now. But that's going to dwindle real quick, because that's not sustainable, guys. Like you have to pace yourself in this industry. I know some of you are still trying to get up your speed and get to that point where you can do 2 or 3 tracks a week. But for those of you that are like, oh my God, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, just listen to me, okay? This is wisdom. This is 10 years of wisdom. And I've seen so many people jump into this business and get burned out. 6 months, they're out. 3 months, they're gone. 1 year, nothing, right? It's because they mistakenly thought that if I just work 3,000 times harder in the beginning stages of my career, I'm going to get there, you know, so much faster, and all the money's just going to come rolling in, and then blah, 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 blah. Okay. There's just no shortcuts, guys. It takes time to get those royalties. It takes time to develop relationships, right? We're talking about developing real relationships with real human beings in this industry. That can't happen overnight, right? You have to slowly, over time, consistently show up, deliver great music, give that really strong brand of yourself to the people that you're working with. As those years go on and you create a sustainable pace for yourself, you will see that you are a million miles ahead of everybody else. All those people that were going so fast in the beginning, you're like, oh my gosh, how do I keep up with them? They're still going to be where they started. They're just still running around, or maybe they've now completely just tired themselves out and they're not doing anything. Yes, it is the tortoise and the hare analogy, right? The tortoise will eventually win the race because he paced himself, right? So it's not a sprint. It is a marathon. This is a long-term play, okay? You know, amateur producers and musicians that are just trying to strike it rich, they are playing the short-term game. They're just trying to get fame and money right away. And if it doesn't work out, they, oh, okay, let me try something else. I hope you guys watching this are aware that that is not a recipe for success in any industry, in any part of life, with human relationships, with business, with anything. Getting the quick buck, getting the quick result never leaves you satisfied and never works out in the long run. You do have to pace yourself, and you have to realize this is a long-term play. Yeah, so Lawrence, this is kind of similar to what I was just talking about. Libraries would be interested in an album of themes. Absolutely, a collection that are in different genres. But a perfect place for supervisors to check for original theme tunes. Themes. I mean, you could definitely go for that. If you go with a library that's you know, they're marketing a lot of that and saying like, hey, we want we need theme music for our partners, or you feel that like with your research of their catalog that they do a lot of theme placement, absolutely. You could say like, this is my album of themes. But various genres, no, I would not do that. I would go, here's my 10 EDM theme songs or 10 orchestral theme songs. So stick with one style for sure. Tune Find, thank you. I think that was what I was thinking of. So thank you so much, man. Kenneth, yeah, we talked about feedback earlier in the stream, man. I'll put this up there afterwards so you guys can watch this again. But I definitely talked about getting feedback from professionals. Lenny's asking about LUFS levels for minimal attention tracks. I use the same LUFS more or less for every genre, man. So go watch that How to Get Your Tracks Louder tutorial in my master, or it's in my music licensing basics series. I use that for pretty much every genre. So I don't really go, well, you know, minimal, I want it to be quieter, this and that. Remember, the editor can always turn your stuff down, right? They can always turn you down, and they will. Every library, I mean, every editor who puts music in doesn't leave anything at full volume. They're all going to leave it down. But what you need to do is give them that option. If they want to crank it up and like have that nice rise crescendo, you give them a loud present track. And also, the most important reason why you want a louder LUFS level and not be like quiet is because as they're previewing all these songs, if they see a quiet little, you know, a wave file compared to all the other ones next to it that are all massively large, it's just not going to stand out. It's not going to grab their attention, and you're not going to get the placement. It's just, I don't know. It's human nature. People like loud music. They like loud things that grab their attention. So it's also a marketing ploy. It's really what it is. All right. Okay, cool, Ken. Yeah, I already got that. Sorry, I know I'm a little bit behind, guys, so I'll try to answer those as I can. Oh, yeah, meta tagging. Martin, I don't know if you've seen, I do have a meta tag or a metadata entry tutorial in the Academy. So it's in my Music Licensing Basics series as well. So just scroll down there. And I have a whole thing about putting up an Excel sheet. I even give you the template Excel sheet if you want to put it in there. Now, obviously, every library will have their own unique requirements for that. So you can send them what I gave you. It might not be applicable entirely to them. They might have their own specific things they need to have because every library obviously has a different ingesting system. But that's a great way to get started, to start thinking about how you should be maybe meta tagging your albums. Now, you don't have to do that to submit to a library. And a lot of times I wouldn't really submit that along with your tracks because, again, the chances that they're like, oh, this is perfect, we'll just use your metadata as is, very unlikely. But what I would say in your submission email is, I'm happy and willing to supply you the metadata that you need at your convenience, right? Or with a template that you guys provide. $10.99 at the end of the year from BMI or ASCAP. Yeah, it comes from both. So it depends on who you're with as a writer, or if you have a publishing account. So at the end of the year, you do need to, you can go online though. They give you your $10.99 online if you go in your membership services area. And it's like, I think it's called tax forms or something. And every year, I think they try to get it out by the end of January. I think sometimes they're a little bit late, but yeah, usually they get your $10.99 there for all the royalties that you made. You're welcome, Slazmodge. I'm butchering your name, but you're welcome. Interesting. So Adam's asking about tuning your kick. I don't really tune my kick. Sometimes I do, but in that tutorial, I guess, oh, you're asking about the plugin and stuff. It depends, because if usually with my rock drums, I'm using Steven Slate drums. Now I'm not sure which tutorial exactly you were watching. But usually what I'll do is within Steven Slate, you can tune things a little bit. And most of the time I'm only going to be tuning it because I want it to have a little bit more thud or bass, or maybe I need it to be a little bit snappier, right? So yeah, absolutely messing with your tuning of your kick drum or even all your snare. Like if you want a more heavier, just, you know, big slamming, cracking snare, turn down the tuning a little bit, right? Get it a little bit lower in tuning. You're going to feel this like heaviness a little bit more with the snare. Now, sometimes that can be too heavy, so you obviously need to be reasonable with it. Or if it's a little bit more poppy, kind of a funky, fun track, you turn up the tuning. It's a little bit crispier. It's a little bit, you know, tighter of a snare sound. So it makes it more like a piccolo snare. So absolutely, I mess with that. Usually I don't use a plugin to do that. I actually just use it with whatever the native sound library that I'm using. This is a really common question from JK. So he makes a hip hop in the format for music licensing. Use the same elements and turn it into a beat format. Okay. So if you make a track and it gets accepted by a music library. Now for this first example, let's say it's an exclusive music library, meaning that you've signed a contract with that library and they said, thank you for your track. We will exclusively distribute it to our licensing partners. What does that mean? That means you as the producer cannot republish that track anywhere. I mean, literally anywhere. You can't put it on YouTube. You can't put it on iTunes. You can't throw it to another artist and maybe just put their vocals on it and change a couple of things. Like, oh, no, it's a different track. I mean, you can do that, But if you, I mean, the only reason why you want to do that is if you want to immediately piss away your relationship with this library and jeopardize it like really quickly. Because if they find that you gave them an exclusive track and then turned around and monetized it in another way, gave it to somebody else, gave it to an artist, sold the beat, licensed the beat, did something like that, what are they going to think about you? Well, here's a person that doesn't, honor their contracts. They say they're going to do something and they don't. Do you think they're going to want to work with you ever again? No, never going to want to work with you. So it's a very common question from producers, especially those of you that might be leasing your beats out to rappers and artists. Like, well, this beat's been sitting here forever. Maybe I'll throw it into licensing, and then maybe eventually, somebody might want to use it as well for my store. And don't do that. Okay. If you want to get into licensing, I can only tell you this is the one approach that will keep you out of all that trouble. Just create music dedicated for music licensing. Okay. Create a brand new catalog, a brand new library. If you're selling beats, if you're leasing beats out, if you're doing something else, if you're, trying to build up your brand as a producer, or as a band or an artist, keep that separate. Just keep these worlds completely separate, because most libraries these days are exclusive, right? They're going to want that exclusivity. And if part of your brand and your image depends on you having all this music out there for the public to consume, you're obviously going to have a little bit of a conflict there. So that's why I recommend you follow a new path, and you, at least on the side of your artist career, leasing beats, whatever you're doing over here, this is a new thing. That means it needs to have new music that has not been spoken for, that has not been exposed to anybody before. Be smart about that and deliver it directly and only for the licensing business. Now, that's all for exclusive. If you're partnering with a non-exclusive opportunity, and there still are, libraries and places out there where you can, and I'm not saying they're terrible. A lot of them can be very lucrative. I've made a lot of money from non-exclusive libraries. If it's non-exclusive, obviously check the details of your contract, but most of the time that's going to mean, thank you, we'll take those. You can do whatever else you want to do with them. You can resell them. You can give them to another non-exclusive library, right? You can't go around and turn it to an exclusive library, because then what are you doing? You're conflicting your contracts, right? Because the exclusive library is going to say, all right, we need exclusive use of this. If you've already given it to another non-exclusive library, they don't have exclusive use, right? It's already out there. So you don't want to be lying and saying, oh yeah, no, I've never given it to anybody. It's a small business, guys. And the registration process, people will bump into each other. Tracks will suddenly appear on people's TV screens, and they're going to see what you're doing. Okay. So it's a gamble, and you can absolutely try to get away with something, but it's not worth it. Okay. And I've seen so many producers who try to do things like that, like literally take somebody else's music, say it's theirs, get it registered, and try to make royalties off of it. You just get axed. You're just going to get blacklisted. You're done in this business. It just is not going to work out for you. And you cannot, I can guarantee this, you cannot afford to make any enemies in this industry. Okay. There will be people who say, ah, no, thanks. We don't want to work with you. Your music's not great for this. That's not an enemy. Okay. That's just somebody who doesn't want to do business with you. But when you get people that are like, hey, watch out for that guy. Like he's up to no good. He's committing fraud. He's violating contracts. Oh, lawsuits coming your way, copyright infringements, right? You start doing that kind of stuff, no, nobody's going to want to do business with you. So I don't think you guys are doing that. I'm not accusing any of you guys of doing that, but let's just be smart here. And I do recommend to stay clear of all of that nonsense. If you're doing anything else in your music career, great, go for it. Keep hustling and trying to get that success you're going for. Now create a new catalog specifically for the TV film industry. That's what I recommend. All right. Glad you're loving the trainings, Martin. Very cool, man. I'm saying the made-up name perfectly, /Maj. All right. If you want to take music non-exclusive and make it only exclusive, well, you have to go to the non-exclusive library and take it back out of their catalog. So it depends on what contract you signed. Sometimes they'll have like a 2 or 3 year thing where it's like, hey, you signed this over to us for 2 or 3 years. Maybe at the end of 2 or 3 years, you can take it back. Maybe they say, hey, at any point you can take it back. You got to give us maybe a 30-day notice. So it's not complicated, but you have to follow the contract that you signed, obviously. Roy, good question about having the name for licensing the music for your fan base. I made a YouTube video about that exact topic, so I don't want to repeat myself here. Go to my YouTube channel. I think I titled it Musicians, Artists, Bands, How to Get Started with Music Licensing, something like that. It's something I did the last couple of weeks, and I have a whole PowerPoint telling you the pros and cons of using your name in the licensing business or using an alias. So please go ahead and watch that for all of you guys that are in that position. I think that was a really good presentation that really illuminated that subject. MIDI controllers that I'd recommend. I mean, I have a basic M Audio Key Station 49, like 49 keys. That was like $100, something like that. I mean, I know some producers want like the fancy stuff, weighted keys and all these sounds in there. All my sounds come from through Logic Pro, through my libraries. I'm not really a keyboard player anyways. I don't need the weighted keys. I don't need those fancy bells and whistles. So if you are a keyboard player and you want to really capture that real authentic performance, then maybe you do want to have a more fancier keyboard. But M Audio, you know, this thing is, I think it was $80, $89. It was really not that bad. Brian, so if you release a song commercially, can you try to get those songs licensed? Yes and no. I mean, you can definitely go to a library if it's already been released, let's say on iTunes, but you have to tell that library, this is on iTunes already, okay? And some libraries will be, all right, no problem, we understand, we still love it, we're going to exclusively keep your music for licensing purposes. You can still obviously do what you're doing for your fans. Some libraries will say, nope, we don't want anything to do with that because it's other people have it and it's not as valuable to our clients. We want to have music that they can only get through us, right? So it varies from library to library. If you're a really popular artist, you have a buzz about you, you probably have a better shot, honestly, of doing it, because then think about the library's point of view. Wow, look at this hot artist that we just got to sign on to our catalog and we can use their music, but we're the only ones that can use their music for licensing, right? Still very valuable, but you have to have somewhat of a buzz to probably guarantee that. Is it Lawrence? Good question. Is it unusual for libraries to supply themes, tunes to new shows, or music supervisors more likely get them from direct relationships with producers? It works with both, Lawrence or Lawrence. I would say though that the reason why a lot of times if it's going for a theme, usually you're going to go with a catalog, a library, because you have more options, right? We actually just did this in the Syndicate a couple months back. We were pitching for an NBC show for a theme opportunity. And we were not the only people pitching for that TV theme opportunity. There were other libraries, other companies that were also pitching for the same one. So what they're getting is when they work with one library or multiple libraries, is they can literally get 100 submissions, right? That's why, again, what are the chances that anybody's getting that one? Yeah, 1 out of 100 or whatever it is, right? So your chances of getting those big, huge, awesome placements are very little. So let's just be realistic about it. It's not happening for a lot of people. It happens for a few people, which is great. But that's why you don't get too focused on those themes, right? Because themes are great and you can definitely get them and they're definitely possible and they're very lucrative, but there's only one spot for a theme song per show, right? But how many different tracks get placed on that TV show? Thousands, right? There's thousands of background tracks, foreground tracks, transitional tracks, whatever. So that's why I always say, let's focus on the things that you can do, right? You can do a lot of, and not set ourselves up for maybe failure by just shooting for the 1 in 100 shot. And if you don't get it, and statistically the odds are you're not going to, that you feel like a failure. Oh, what is this for? It's not going to, again, it's casting a wider net, right? Not getting so focused on that. Like, well, I have to get a theme. If I'm not a theme, if I don't get that theme, I'm not going to do this. It's not going to work out for me. Again, 99 times out of 100, you're not going to get that theme, okay? If it's that big of an opportunity. So doesn't mean you have to be discouraged. You have to feel like it's, you know, it's all a waste of time. But I'm trying to help you guys be realistic about this industry and what it's really like. It's buzzing again. Oh, thank you. Yes, it is. Hold on. It's my cable. It's a really bad cable. There we go. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap this up here in a bit. We're about an hour in. Sorry about the buzzing. I got a new XLR cable in the mail, so once that comes in, I'm swapping this dumb thing out. It's been doing this for like last week. Didn't do that before. All of a sudden, this cable is just buzzing. So, all right. Do I have a coach? I don't really have a coach. Like for my business, what I'm doing here, I've had a couple of mentors along the way that have helped me for sure. But honestly, I'm more the type that like, I don't like to follow somebody's advice too much. I really do like to just do my own thing. I mean, that's kind of how I got started in licensing, as I made a lot of stupid mistakes. I should have listened to a coach or a mentor, but I'm stubborn sometimes and I just want to do things. And I've screwed up so much stuff, even building Sync My Music and the Syndicate and my master course and everything that I've done. man, I screwed up a lot of stuff and messed up, and you know, just whatever. You just live and learn. You go through it. The difference, I think, that, you know, some people make mistakes, and when they make a mistake or they run into an obstacle, they give up, right? It's like, oh, well, see, I failed and it didn't work out. I kind of see mistakes or things that don't work out. Sure, it doesn't feel good. I'm not saying it feels awesome, but it's just sort of a sign that, like, all right, well, that approach didn't work, and you're one step closer to something that will, because now you know what not to do. So I see it as a step forward, even though it doesn't feel like a step forward. It feels like a step backward, like that, you know, whatever I did, I screwed up. But it is a step forward because you learned a lesson, right? So you learned, you got wiser, you got smarter. So if you look at your mistakes that way, even in the licensing business, you screw something up, you submit the wrong way. Yeah, it sucks. It doesn't feel good to get rejected, but in the long run, you're learning, right? And you're going to be, you know, making those mistakes, but basically getting yourself closer and closer to something that does work. I always think about Ford, the car manufacturer guy. He, you know, he had the Model T. That was the big one that blew up and everybody started biting, right? Well, I always thought that he just called it Model T because it was just, you know, he liked the letter T and whatever. I don't know. No, that was because he started with A, and then A flopped. Then he did B, Model B. B sucked. Then he did C, all the way down to T. What is that? 19, 16 letters, whatever that is. So he failed that many times over and over and over and over and over and over again until he finally got one that actually worked. Okay. So along the way, if Ford had said, man, I suck at this, I should just stop making cars or even try, you know, who knows what the future would have been. I'm sure somebody would have invented the car. But I always like those stories because it's like, that's some guy who was crazy enough to do it. Like, he was making all these mistakes. He was screwing it up. But I'm sure in his mind, he was like, all right, cool. Just check that off. That didn't work. Let's go a different approach. All right, that didn't work. And he knew that at some point he's going to find that thing that works. But he had to go through all that whole process. Now, if he had a mentor, if somebody had told him, hey, here's how you make a marketable car, he could have skipped all of that. And that's what I'm trying to do with you guys here. Okay, I don't want you to have to make Model A through Model T. I want you to get right to Model T. Okay, and that's why I'm trying to make sure you guys have all that kind of stuff here in Sync Academy. All right. If the long-term vision is to be an active artist, what piece of advice would you give us to use Sync as a part of the journey? Oh, okay. That's a really good question. So if you mean like you're trying to actually sell music to fans and you want to actually like get that kind of exposure, how do you use TV Sync to supplement essentially your career? Well, basically, like the way that I see it is that if you have a strategy, if you have a goal, you have a vision with your artist music and with, you know, selling music to fans, touring, merch, all that kind of stuff, right? Keep doing it. Go for it. Work on that. I can't teach you anything about that because that's not how I succeeded. I did not succeed in that world. I succeeded in the TV Sync world. So I can't give you any advice on that, but I would say go for it. Go where your heart's telling you to go. What I would recommend is you basically, if this is your main ship, you have a getaway ship that you basically attach onto your career. Okay. And it's basically like your plan B. Now, I don't think for me, obviously it was not my plan B. It was my plan A. But it started off as a plan B because I still wanted to be the rock star. I wanted to go on tour. And then I heard about this licensing thing. I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. You know, I could make some other, you know, side income, maybe some part-time income or something. But what you do is when you start to create some music with this kind of getaway ship, sometimes it can grow slow and just slowly, steadily start creating income. And at some point, this actually might grow to the point where it dwarfs what you're doing over here. Now you have your clue from the market. Hey, this is where your music needs to go. This is where your efforts need to go. This is not getting you where you want to go. That is. So that's one scenario that can happen for you. The other thing that can happen for you is it can just stay small, you know, just sort of not do much for you. And this can grow and this can grow. And then one day you can get a major placement, something that's really noticeable, something that gets a lot of publicity. And what do? You immediately take this over and you capitalize on that, right? And you show people, hey, I'm this artist. I just got this placement. I got the theme song here. I'm on this commercial. I'm doing this and doing that. And you publicize the hell out of it. And you completely take advantage of that moment where you got all this notoriety and all this publicity instantly. So it's basically like a firework waiting to explode in a good way. It can really actually supercharge your career if you get those really massive placements. And it's all sitting right there. So worst case scenario, there's that potential of that happening. But again, I think what most artists are going to find is this thing is going to crumble. You're not going to see the results you want. You're not going to see the progress that you want. And then you're going to see contracts and checks, contracts and checks, contracts and checks, contracts and checks. That's what happened to me. And that's when I realized, what am I doing over here? This is just not working out for me. It's not where my path is supposed to be. This is where my path is supposed to be. So that was my wisdom. That's what I learned. But that's what I recommend for a lot of you guys that are going for it as artists. Stick with your dreams. Stick with your vision. I'm not trying to talk you guys out of that. But be smart. Smart producers and smart artists and bands look for other opportunities and methods to monetize and get exposure with their music. And if you're not doing that, you're making the mistake of probably 95% of people out there that are not going about this the right way. All right, guys, I'm gonna shut this thing off here in a bit. Is having a website crucial? It's not crucial, but it's definitely very, very important. It's like wearing a suit to a job interview. Is that crucial to get the job? You answer that question. You tell me. Cool. All right, guys. I think I got them all answered. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll make this available to you guys afterwards. So if you missed this, you can obviously watch this later. And please watch back if you only came in halfway through it. A lot of great stuff here for you guys. And I really appreciate your questions and your, just your participation here. I really do. I'm humbled that this many of you are interested in licensing and that you guys are getting excited about this thing. So I'm really proud to be a part of your guys' journey. And I want to help you in any way that I can. So get back to work. I know it's Sunday, but it's a work day for us here. So I hope you guys are having fun with your music productions, and we'll talk soon.